And welcome into the Paul Farrington Show, a Week 16 reaction show. Paul, joined by Robert Ziggy Ziegler, who is still back home in California. Ziggy, when do you get back to Virginia?
I believe it's January 13th. It's right before playoff football. So I'm going to be home just in time to see the wild card games. So
we'll be good to rock and roll with you in the full studio right around the time things really get going in the NFL. It's funny. I moved things around in my room to try and make the background look a little bit better than it would have if I hadn't. And right before Ziggy and I are set to record, all of a sudden, every single thing on my desk falls off. I mean, monitors everywhere. There's cameras on the ground. I'm just like, oh my God, this is going to be an absolute disaster. So bear with us for our technical capabilities at the moment. We're out of studio. I got Ziggy on my left and notes on the right here. So a little bit back to our TV days when Ziggy and I used to do some Shamrock Sports over at Notre Dame Television. But it was a really fun slate of games this weekend, both Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. There's some big matchups that really I'm excited to go over. The Viking, first off, I know it's not on our schedule, but the Viking game was incredibly disappointing, at least on my end. How are you doing now that you're almost a full season into complete Viking fandom?
You know, Paul, I can't wait for the season to be over. It wears on you, man. I really thought things were starting to get going. I didn't want to believe it when people told me that the Forest defense was solved for the season. You just run a dagger and the Forest defense is dead. We'll be good next year. I'm not worried about that. Kirk will be back. Everything will be fine. But this season's over. I'm done watching Vikings football.
Well, that's our mantra is next season. There's always next season. And I'm telling you, they'll do something. They'll probably re-sign Kirk, Jefferson, Hockenson hopefully gets healthy over the offseason. We'll see if he's even ready for week one. That was just, with him and Wanham getting hurt, it was just a brutal game all around. But I'm telling you, they'll find a way to give you hope in July. And next thing you know, you're going to be saying, wow, Detroit maybe isn't actually that good. And Green Bay, is Jordan Love, do I believe in him just yet? And then you'll be talking about winning the division. And it's a cycle. It's a vicious cycle, my friend. And I'm sorry that I helped bring you into this, but, you're along for the ride at this point.
It's too late to eject.
We can start off with the 49ers and the Ravens. And it's really funny, Ziggy, because you mentioned in the comment of our Ravens-49ers preview that we were really putting ourselves out there open to criticism by saying we were expecting a 49ers win here. And we were expecting a pretty big win at that with the way San Francisco had been looking. And midway through the third quarter, with the Ravens up almost 25 points, whatever it was at the time, you just send over a text, you go, this is what I was worried about. And it was just I felt a dominating performance by Lamar Jackson, the Ravens, despite San Francisco coming back at the end. I know that you think San Francisco kept it a little bit closer than I did just from watching it. But to me, this was a Lamar Jackson, this is why you pay him kind of a game. And I know that you're not comfortable with the MVP being a quarterback award, but regardless of position at this point, I think Lamar Jackson has to be the front runner. And this was a statement win for the Ravens. But where did you come down, your instant reaction?
I'm a little bit puzzled about the reaction for Lamar Jackson this week. I mean, this was an above average game for him this year, and his numbers were dinged a little bit by that really weird safety. You know, I'm not going to take a side on should it have counted, what should the NFL have done, but that was just a weird fluke play. Setting that aside, I mean, Lamar Jackson, he played all right, but the MVP of this game was clearly the Ravens defense, right? If you look at the most impactful plays, it was Purdy interception, Purdy interception, Purdy interception, Purdy interception, Darnold sack, and Darnold interception, right? Every single play that really mattered for the Ravens came from the defense. They gave the offense good field position, and of course, credit to Lamar Jackson, the offense, for capitalizing. But Brock Purdy is good at controlling the ball. He's good at reading defenses. He's usually a very accurate passer. And Mike McDonald took advantage of all of that to put him under huge pressure, show him a lot of really confusing looks. So if you're a Ravens fan, I think you should be really happy with this performance. The defense was very good. But it's not going to be common that you can give up 11 yards of play for the first 3 drives and have the opposing offense walk away with only 3 points. So I'm not panicking just yet for the 49ers, but you got to be happy with this win.
Yeah, you can't panic if you're a 49ers fan. It is bizarre to me how we've seen Brock Purdy this year have 4 games now. When they lose, he's looked really bad, and then when they win, is it just me or he looks perfect in wins and just terrible in losses? And I have a lot of faith in Brock going into the playoffs. I'm not concerned about him too much at all. But it's just funny watching the two sides of Brock Purdy that there are. And we're used to seeing this guy who's just flawless. And last night, the Ravens defense, I remember after that last interception of Darnold, could you hear the guys on TV saying, "Who's the best in the league? Who's the best in the league?" And that's when I started thinking to myself, wow, all right, this game, it's a big game, but they were talking about getting the bragging rights from the entire league with this win here. And a big takeaway I had, Ziggy, we were talking off air, is that the Ravens now, I'm not sure they'll have a better chance of winning the Super Bowl in the next decade in the AFC. It's a Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow. We know the superstar quarterbacks who are there. And given the layout of this season, with really only, I don't even know if you could say it's maybe the Bills are the one team playing well in the AFC, them and the Dolphins. And then it's Baltimore, and they're probably going to get the one as long as they beat Miami. I mean, that's a huge game this weekend, but they beat Miami at home. It seems like this is the golden opportunity. Do you disagree with that?
I absolutely agree. I mean, look, getting the 1 seed out of the AFC North is just tough because it's really hard to stack wins and get more than 3 in a typical AFC North season. The Browns have had 4 quarterbacks get hurt. The Steelers are in a weird transitory period. Joe Burrow's hurt. Patrick Mahomes, as you say, is not stacking up those AFC West wins. The Bills were off to a slow start. Like, so many things have gone right for the Ravens. And we saw it last year, right? Both 1 seeds made it to the Super Bowl. Having to play 1 fewer game, getting to host all your playoff games, right? The difference between playing in Baltimore versus in Miami, in Buffalo, in Cincinnati, all places you might be expected to go. It's really nice to be able to host those games. In Kansas City, obviously, you don't want to go there. So, yeah, I think this is the opportunity. Lamar Jackson's early in his contract, so the cap hits haven't gotten too bad. You've got a defensive coordinator that is going to be heavily considered for head coaching jobs. You have to take advantage of the window while you can.
Yeah, it's the defense too to me. Like when are you going to have it line up where Lamar Jackson is playing MVP football every single week at this point? It feels like the defense is arguably the best in football right now. You got a great coach. You have a clear path to the one. You have the rest of the team struggling. Every single thing that the Ravens need to make a run, it's laying out perfectly for them. And if you're a Ravens fan, I know a few of them who are super jacked up. You're just kind of waiting for that playoff game. It'll be a big sigh of relief when they play in the divisional round. And I love how I'm assuming that they're going to get the 1 seed right now. But let's say they do. If they look good in the divisional round, that'll be a huge sigh of relief to kind of exercise those Lamar Jackson playoff demons, go on to an AFC championship game, which feels long overdue. But exciting times to be a Ravens fan. I mean, we'll admit when we're wrong on this show. We were dead wrong about this game on Christmas Eve or Christmas night. You want to move on, do a little Dolphins Cowboys here?
Yeah, since we're talking about the Dolphins, now seems like a good time to bring it up.
Did I lose you on camera for a second?
What do you mean?
Oh, there you go. There we go. Right back like you never left. Zach's Dolphins finally get their big win, 22-20 against the Cowboys. Watching this game, Ziggy, we knew something had to give. The Cowboys hadn't beaten a team over 500 on the road this season. The Dolphins hadn't beat a team over 500 on the entire year, 10-0 against sub-500 teams, 0-4 against teams 500 or better coming into this week. Jason Sanders, what a game for my fantasy kicker. 22 points to guide me to my fantasy football championship. But the Dolphins, if you're a fan of them, and we'll hear more from Zach on Thursday's show, but this, speaking of sigh of reliefs, had to be one where you say, okay, like, thank God we didn't come into our own home stadium, get blown out by Dallas. This felt like a prove-it game if you're Miami heading into the playoffs in just a couple weeks. And now they have an opportunity for all the talk about the 1 seed we've been having. If they beat Baltimore, the path is theirs for the taking if they can beat Buffalo in Week 18. Was this for you a big sigh of relief game for Dolphins fans saying, okay, we can compete at the highest level?
It has to be. I mean, this Dallas Cowboys defense is just really good.
Awesome.
And, they played pretty well, right? They recovered after the Bills game against the run, right? They limited things there. But the Dolphins offense was able to continue presenting new options after things weren't going right. And when you look at how these road games have gone in the past for the Dolphins, right? The road games they lost earlier. I know they were playing at home here. But when they went to Germany, when they went to Buffalo, the problem was their good players just weren't able to get the ball. In this game, it was a totally different situation when you absolutely needed to play. Waddle, when he was healthy, or Tyreek Hill, or Raheem Mostert got the ball and stepped up. So if you were worried that they'd shy away from the moment or that in the big games, the good players on Miami choked, that concern should be out of your mind now. The Cowboys defense, being able to beat them and take care of business means a whole lot, even at home.
Hey, and I thought Bradley Chubb was great too on the defensive side of the ball. But one thing I love talking about getting the ball to your playmakers. Remember that last play of the game, really to set up the field goal where they threw the little swing pass out to Tyreek Hill. It's kind of a screen, but I just love that. And as a Viking fan, there are times we've been screaming, just throw it to Jefferson, let him make a play. You saw that on the 4th and 30 or 3rd and 30 in the Lions game. Just throw it up, let him do something. Mike McDaniel does a good job of getting his star players the football when they need it in their hands. And Tyreek Hill basically ended the game there. But you said it was a great game for Dallas too. Like it felt like two playoff contenders going back and forth. And maybe that's just how it's supposed to be in a game where you had two teams with similar narratives of not being able to beat the good team or the great teams. Maybe that we were just set up for a classic game. But if you're a Dolphins fan now, you're circling the 1 seed. Because I'm not confident they can go into Baltimore. I know they did it last year. I'm not confident they go into Baltimore really next week or especially in the playoffs and get a win. A lot of times it feels like the one big play goes against Miami. So this weekend, this is a Super Bowl winning weekend for the Dolphins if they're able to get a win here. We'll talk about a lot more in the preview show, but you have to be psyched up. Do you remember the text you were getting from Zach on Christmas Eve?
Yeah, no, and Dolphins fans should be excited, right? Now the 1 seed is back in their control. After that Titans loss, I think people were starting to worry whether they'd really slip. Now, if they go and beat Baltimore on the road, they go and beat Buffalo at home, they'll have that 1 seed. They'll get to play at home. So yeah, as you say, next week is really important for them, obviously. But to get it back in your control after it looked like things might be starting to slide a little bit, very reassuring for Dolphins fans.
Oh, with the way they lost to Tennessee, giving up, 14-point lead, 3 minutes left in the game, to lose that sort of a game and come back and get a win like this. Now, the division still isn't locked up, which is something that we've talked about multiple times on the show now. If they lose to Baltimore, then Buffalo has a shot, assuming Buffalo wins next weekend. But if Buffalo wins and Miami loses, that game is for the AFC East, which is still crazy. Isn't it nuts to think that the Dolphins just go and beat the Cowboys in what feels like a playoff game down in Miami? And there's still a chance, even with them being at 11-4 and all the crap that Buffalo's had going on this season, like the odds are still likely that Buffalo is playing for the East in Week 18, which it's kind of weird to think about that.
It's not weird for me, Paul. I said in week 13, this is what was going to happen. When the Bills were plus 1,600 to win the AFC East, I was pounding the table that folks had to drop this. Plus 4,000 to win the Super Bowl. But none of that really matters now, right? What matters is just, can the Dolphins play good football? That question has been answered, yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not super worried about them going into Baltimore. They might win, they might lose, but they're not fraudulent.
Yeah, and how about Tua going on a game-winning drive as well? Like that was something a lot of people doubted this season, was whether or not he can show up in big moments. Regardless of this being a big game, in the biggest moment of the game, he drove them down the field and got the game-winning field goal. He did have that bad throw to Tyreek on the game-winning drive, that the one way behind him. But he got the job done, and it's an exciting time to be a Dolphins fan. Best season they've had, what you say, since 1990, something like that.
Just about.
Sheesh. So we'll move on. We'll wrap up the recap with a panic meter segment here. We're going to talk about 4 teams: the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Green Bay Packers and say, how much should they be panicking post Week 16 with the playoffs right around the corner? We start with the Eagles, who get a really big win against the Giants, 33-25, in a game where it's 23 at halftime, and we're unwrapping gifts downstairs with the family. We have the game on, and we're kind of glancing back and forth at the game. It's a blowout, and next thing you know, it's I think a 5-point game, and we're all run back upstairs to watch the end of it. But one of those games for the Eagles where it felt like they were in control most of the way. But there we were at the end with the Giants driving late. Tyrod Taylor, who is better than Tommy DeVito. I'm sorry for all the people who enjoyed the Tommy Cutlets ride, but Tyrod Taylor is just better than him. He had a chance to tie the game late, and ultimately the Eagles come away with the win here. Are you concerned moving forward for Philly, because they haven't had a great game now in months on both sides of the football?
In this game, there was a moment where who was fielding that kickoff? I think it was Boston Scott and Olamide Zaccheaus, and they just ran into each other, and the ball popped out. This is what the Eagles. Ridiculous. This is what things have felt like for the Eagles in the second half of the season. It is very difficult for them to get out of their own way. The offense has struggled quite a bit to consistently produce. They're known to give up points to teams like the Giants in embarrassing moments. It's really tough for me to look at this team and not see the 2022 Minnesota Vikings. I've said it before, but there have been a lot of really, really tight wins. A lot of, the offense is good, but it fails you in the worst moments. I don't know, Paul. I'm starting to feel a 3 or 4 alarm fire in Philadelphia. I get that the fans are excited. I get that they're probably hosting a playoff game or two, but it is very difficult for me to trust in this team after what we've seen. They need change on the offense. They need someone other than Matt Patricia coordinating the defense. I don't know. They're clearly panicking. Maybe we should too.
So on a 1 to 5 scale, with 5 being full on panic, sound the alarms in Philadelphia, 1, everything's okay, you're at a 4?
I'm at a 3.5.
3.5. Okay. See how I try to push you a little bit over the edge there?
Look,
it's a real hot take.
Also, if here's the thing. If they start slipping and losing games, because you talked about the Dolphins not having division locked up, the Eagles don't have the division locked up either.
No.
It's pretty close. But if they start losing games, if they don't look good against the Cardinals or the Giants in New York, it's time to worry. That could easily go up.
I'm not sure what the tiebreakers are right now, but would they have to lose out in order to?
I believe they would have to lose out, and the Cowboys would have to win out. So it's not likely.
They're not going to lose out to Arizona and the Giants. I doubt that. But yeah, there is still a world. I would say I'm at a 2 for Philly. It's concerning that they haven't looked great for a few weeks now, but I do trust the leaders on this team. When you have the Jason Kelce's, the Jalen Hurts, that defense, Brandon Graham, all those guys, I expect them to show up. Do I think this team is as good as last year's team? No. And then that comes down to really the defensive side of the ball, where you feared the Eagles last year. If you went into Philly, they were going to shut you down, it felt like. And now on the back end, the line is still great, but on the back end, we're seeing them get exposed a little bit week after week here. That's where my concern lies with the Eagles. Will they show up in a big playoff game? I think they will. I do trust them to come into that, but maybe closer to a 2.5 if I'm gonna move up the panic meter a little bit. But not there yet. Not there yet. We'll see how they end the season. If they're playing in Philly, though, I like their chances to get at least to the NFC Championship game, and then we'll go from there. How about the Chiefs, Ziggy?
I've been saying all season long that the Chiefs are eventually going to figure out the offense, and there's nothing to worry about. Unfortunately, early in the season, we had a chill pill segment. We were telling everyone not to panic because of how much time there was left. Well, time's up for the Chiefs. The offense put together probably the worst performance of Patrick Mahomes' entire career was against the Raiders this weekend. They lost to a team that did not complete a pass in the entire second half.
Absurd.
It's not good. Mahomes is still playing all right, but if you look at how this offense plays, it is sit back and try and wait for Mahomes to do something because absolutely no one can help him out. The defense is good, but this isn't the 2000 Ravens. It's not going to be good enough to carry this offense. I'm going up to 4. I think that the Chiefs are in serious danger of not even winning a playoff game this year. And it's become increasingly difficult to see how they're going to make a run unless things really shape up.
No, I'm with you. I have it at a 4 as well. If you told me that Aiden O'Connell completed 9 passes for 61 yards in this game and no touchdowns, I would have said, what, did Kansas City win 35-0? Was something like that. And it's 2 defensive touchdowns for Vegas. It's just, you're watching that game, and I have Travis Kelce on my fantasy team. My dad has Travis Kelce. We're watching, and when you have that fantasy implication, you pay a little bit more attention to things. You're just waiting for someone to do something on this offense, and no one makes a move. They're just stagnant, again, shut down. Mahomes is making throws. Like, even Patrick is doing things that you don't see him do normally. There are these decisions that are being made that, sometimes you would get away with them in the past. They don't seem to be working this year. And you're right. They're sitting at the 3 seed right now. That would have them playing the Bills in the first round. And if the Bills go back into Kansas City, the Chiefs will be favored, but I'd imagine most people are taking the Bills to win that football game. Like, that's a nightmare scenario for the Chiefs right now, who are, a couple weeks ago, we all were assuming we're still going to end up with the 1 seed. I agree with you. I have it at a 4, and I'm not sure that any superhero is coming to save them this season. Just regardless of how good Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce are in big moments, at some point you just have to look at this team and say, their defense is going to have to win it. You had that good stat that you sent into our chat today, though, right? It was if they average 22 points per game, I believe it was.
Yeah, so they're 2-3 on the road against teams who would be in the playoffs if things ended today. The defense has given up only 17. If the offense had scored 22 points per game, they'd be 5-0 in those games. So the Chiefs still have a path to win. But the question is, and I can't believe I'm saying this, do you trust the Chiefs offense to score 22 points a game against playoff caliber opponents? Right. At this point, so far, the answer has been no. And I don't see that changing.
So I'm just kind of surfing the web over here. Sorry for not looking at you right now, but just their offense last year, 29.2 points per game, 413.6 yards per game. This year, I have to scroll a little bit. It's 22 points per game. I'm talking a touchdown less. Like, was Juju Smith that good? I don't know. Maybe Kelce getting older is also playing a part of that. Who knows with trying to think of the enemy leaving. I don't know.
There's so many factors converging, and it seems like they've all come to a head at exactly the wrong time. And I mean, you can see that they're getting stressed out, right? Like Mahomes' his usual sportsmanlike conduct is very different. Travis Kelce is throwing helmets and yelling at Andy Reid. Like, no, they're clearly visibly mad. Yeah, it's you can't play good football when you're that angry. You just can't.
No, this is the time though where Kansas City, everyone's doubting them. They're probably going to stumble their way into the playoffs, and then they'll just go and murder someone in the first round and be favored to win the Super Bowl on FanDuel or whatever site you use. Or again, we don't have a sponsor. Let's do 2 more teams here. So we have the Chiefs, we have the Eagles. Let's go to those Buffalo Bills, who, as I said a moment ago, are the 6th seed right now at 9-6, really roaring back from where they were just a couple weeks ago when we had the video coming out that said the Bills are officially fucked. And then without playing a game, we completely changed our opinion and said, wait a second, maybe they're playing better football than people are giving credit right now. And since then, I have to say, I think we were kind of accurate. It seemed like they were dead. Then we switched our tune without any games. And here they are right now, 3-0. Playing the second best football, third best football in the AFC at the moment. And in all likelihood, assuming that they can get a win next week, do they have New England?
They host New England and then they go to Miami.
Yeah, if they beat New England and the Dolphins lose at Baltimore, we're looking at an AFC East title game, essentially, in Miami. Coming off the first matchup where Buffalo routed the Dolphins in Buffalo, I'm not that concerned. 1-5. I'm going to put it at a 2 for Buffalo. I think they get in. I think they'll have the opportunity to win the AFC East. If they do that, I mean, now we're talking about Super Bowl. If they get a couple playoff games in Buffalo, I'm not worried about this team at all. To me, they're basically in the playoffs.
Well, you know, the entire city of Baltimore is cursing Jason Sanders because if he had missed just one of those kicks,
oh yeah,
then yeah, they wouldn't have to worry. They'd have the title game in Buffalo or in Miami locked up. But I think you say it's a 2, and I get why, but I'm feeling more of a 3 here, and I'll say why. The fact is, you have to average the panic relative to expectations. The Bills went in for this being their Super Bowl window year. They're leveraging the salary cap. They want to win now. And unfortunately, even though the Bills are 3-0, this game against the Chargers showed that they haven't excised all their offensive demons, right? The defense stepped up and performed, but that was against Easton Stick, right? The Chargers gave up 63 points to the Raiders, who, as we just said, couldn't complete a single second half pass this week. And the Bills' offense is struggling. I get why. And of course, there are reasons and excuses, and you can say all of these things. But at a certain point, you need to hope for more consistency from the Bills' offense. And I'm just not confident they're going to be able to put together 4 clean games in the playoffs.
Yeah, if we're talking about a Super Bowl run, then I think a 3 is very warranted. Look, it's tough to make the Super Bowl in general, and I look at the layout right now, though. I think they're probably the 3rd best team, and right now you're not super worried about Patrick Mahomes, which I think is a good sign for Buffalo. I would, I understand why you're going with the 3 there. I think they're playing good football, and it'll be fun, man. Zach is going to be a good time with that Week 18 game, assuming things play out the way we're expecting. Hey, watch Miami.
I really hope we get to see a game there and the Dolphins aren't resting their starters.
That'd be great. I'd love to see that. Yeah, it would be great to see a rematch because that first game, Buffalo played great, and Josh Allen, we know his numbers against the Dolphins are off the charts, but you just didn't get the Miami team that we've seen a lot this season. And it would be great to see them throw another punch at Buffalo. And I mean, if they win that game, like people are going to be saying it's them in Baltimore, which, coming into the season, it would have been a surprise to say Kansas City, Bengals, obviously Burrow. But let's do last team here, the Green Bay Packers. We know, and we thank all the Packers fans who always come to our channel and support us. It's, I wouldn't say torturous is the right word, but it's certainly unpleasant at times when we're talking about the Packers in such a positive light. We're trying to be objective here. So when the Packers play good, we have to say, yeah, they look good and Jordan Love is playing well. And they get a big win, 33-30 against the Panthers this past weekend. They sit right now, let me just confirm, as the 10 seed in the NFC, but they only have the Vikings and the Bears left. And with the way Minnesota's quarterback situation is all over the place, Chicago, they get in Green Bay, I do like the Packers to win out to end this season. And now we're just talking about the Rams or Seahawks losing one. And the Seahawks, I believe it's, the Rams, still have San Francisco on their schedule. So you're hoping that'll be a loss there. And the Seahawks, who do they have, Ziggy? I'm trying to remember their final game. I thought they had someone.
Yeah, so I believe they host the Steelers and go to Arizona.
Yeah, Steelers and Cardinals. How much faith do you have in Geno Smith or Drew Lock, whoever winds up playing in these games? I like where Green Bay's at right now.
Yeah, if the Packers win out, they will make the playoffs. It's not mathematically guaranteed, but it is extremely.
It's Paul Farrington show guaranteed. If the Packers win out, they'll get to the playoffs. And with the way Jordan Love is playing right now, you have to be pretty confident. I'm not super concerned about the Vikings offense without Hawkinson, with whoever plays quarterback. Then again, Joe Barry's defense has made everybody look good over the past few weeks. So maybe we see an offensive explosion. But if the defense is just average, then you have to be very confident you win those 2 games and that the Rams and Seahawks, one of them should drop one of them.
But this is the problem, right? You said if the defense is average, but the defense is not average,
exactly, yeah.
Right? The last really good defensive performance we saw from this team was in November against the Lions. Since then, they played all right against the Chiefs, but they lost to the Giants, they lost to the Buccaneers, and they gave up 30 points to the worst offense in the entire NFL. And this wasn't them getting run over, right? They actually managed to stop the run. This was giving Bryce Young over 300 passing yards. This was giving DJ Chark 2 touchdowns. Like, Joe Barry's gone at the end of the season. There's no question about that, and we'll see how they replace it. But after a promising season, and with Jordan Love, I thought he was going to be the problem, but he has shown that he's going to be their quarterback next year and is very, very good.
Yeah.
I think they do have to worry that against not elite, but functional offenses in the Bears and sometimes the Vikings, there's a real danger that the defense costs them a playoff spot that by all rights should be theirs.
And isn't that crazy to think if you told Packers fans earlier this season, before the season started, December football, you'll be playing, Jordan Love will be playing really well. And with 2 wins against the Vikings without Kirk in Chicago, who's been kind of up and down, the Bears are a sneaky game, actually. But any Packers fan would have said, all right, like, we should get in here. To have the defense be playing the way they've been playing recently, Baker Mayfield threw for 381 yards, 4 touchdowns, had a perfect passer rating. Tommy DeVito had 81% completion percentage. Like, these are, DeVito followed that up with 7 sacks in New Orleans that gets benched in Philly. That's what you do to Tommy DeVito. You bench him. Against Baker Mayfield and the Bucs, they're a good team at home. Got to win that game. We said it before. Packers fans would be shocked if I told them the problems they're having right now, given the way Jordan Love has played. But ultimately, that's another reason to say you've had a big success this year, whether or not you make the playoffs, and saying, all right, we got our guy. Now there are other places to fix. But at the end of the day in the NFL, it all starts and ends with quarterback. So for making the playoffs, I'm about a 2.5 for the Packers. That might seem low, but I really do think they're going to win out. And that one of those other teams will drop a game. And then going forward, I'm really not worried about them at all, which sucks, but but they're in good shape to be a contender again in the NFC North next season.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, this Packers season has been really an overwhelming success. We've sort of ridden the Packers roller coaster along with all the fans, but yeah, going forward, absolutely a 1. And I'll say this, Joe Barry, he's not great. I don't know what. I was about to try and give a Joe Barry apology. The defense is bad. My panic for them to make the playoffs is something like a 3. I can't see them the defense not costing them 1 against the Vikings or the Bears. I don't know. But look, the season's been a success. Packers fans had 1 month of really being bad. Since then, they've rebounded. It must be great to be a Packers fan, Paul.
I truly cannot imagine, Ziggy.
They're panicking and saying that everyone needs, some Packers fans, not all of them, some of them are panicking and saying everyone needs to be fired because in their rebuilding year, they're in danger of missing the playoffs.
Yeah, rebuild, not a reload, a complete, for most of it, a complete rebuild. I guess when you're the Packers, though, when you're the Steelers, these teams, it's usually more of a reload than a rebuild at the end of the day. But well, there you have it, the Week 16 reaction show. Again, we'll be back in studio. We're trying out these Christmas week. Things get a little jostled, so we're trying to just get some sort of content out there. But we hope everyone had a Merry Christmas. We appreciate you guys for listening, and we'll be back with a Week 17 preview. Back in studio, back with Jack, back with Zach. So for Ziggy, myself, we'll see you soon.